the Seattle Seahawks have to be considered the biggest challenger in the NFC West.
By default.
By default. A lot of people in today's NFL, they'll tell you it's a passing league. That's a very common phrase that we'll hear when describing today's game. And it's very obviously one of the most important things is getting after the quarterback, which, as we'll say, Seattle doesn't do that well and will need to do better this season. But one thing that they did this offseason is they addressed wide receiver, they addressed cornerback in the draft. They get Jackson Smith-Njigba and Devin Witherspoon. I really like what they're doing on both sides of the ball there, and we'll talk about that more in just a second. But yep, you're right. That's the guy. It all comes down to Geno Smith in this season. He got the 3-year, $75 million contract. They're paying him. He's got weapons. It's all like the offensive line's getting a little better. It's just when you watch Geno Smith, are you confident against the 49ers, the Eagles, the Cowboys? What's your confidence level when he faces those defenses? Do you think he'll be able to get it done? I'm not there yet. I think Geno had a great year, and I actually think Seattle will be a playoff team again and could threaten for the NFC West. But when it comes down to those big games, I just don't trust him enough to. Are either of you guys high enough on Seattle where you think they can crack into that top 3 in the NFC?
Geno's my guy. I love him, as we know.
Oh, I know last year you were all over him.
I think that he's a good quarterback. I think Seattle's a decent team. I think that they should be able to beat most teams that, they should beat. And most teams who are in that kind of higher to middle tier with them. But it's similar when you talk about like Seahawks versus Niners. It's similar to me when you talk about Giants versus Eagles. I don't really see a whole lot of what's going to change. The Niners are a much better football team than Seattle. I think Seattle's defense is too strong for the Niners defense is too much for Geno Smith. They're just all around better. So Seattle will not, I don't think we'll even sniff them. And that's an automatic wild card. So that rules out a top 3 team in the NFC regardless right there. Because you have Philly, you have San Francisco, you have the division winner of the NFC North, who I think I'd probably take Minnesota, Detroit over Seattle too.
Thank you. Oh, yeah. Well, I think Seattle slots in with that Vikings-Lions type of team.
Yeah, I agree. Can they get a wild card? Yeah. They'll go on the road, 6-7 seed again, and lose to it
and
too.
Probably get blown out by.
That's my ceiling for them. Geno Smith is good. I think Seattle's okay, but they're not up there with those top dogs, and I don't think they can be.
And I think they made the right move giving Geno the contract. He played well enough to warrant it.
Yeah, no, for sure.
It's just you're talking about really good teams that they have to go up against.
Right now, he's their best option. But can I see them going on the road to San Fran or Philly, which they'll have to do? No, I see him getting blown out.
How about you, Ziggy? What do you think? Geno can, and maybe not crack into the top 3 in the NFC, but become kind of like we said with the Jaguars. Can they get into that Big 4 maybe competitive world with those teams?
I don't think there's a single player in the NFL where there's certainly no quarterback in the NFL where there's a bigger gap between how the media talks about them and how they're seen inside the NFL. Right? In ESPN rankings, you're seeing Geno Smith as a borderline top 10 quarterback. Mike Sando's tier list came out today. He interviews 50 executives, scouts, coaches, everyone across the league, coordinators on both sides of the ball. Geno Smith ranked 20th. And the Seahawks clearly don't think he's much better than the 20th best quarterback overall, given the contract they offered him. Now, look, he's got a lot of weapons, and most importantly, Austin Blythe is gone. So there will be parades held in Seahawks in Seahawk country just over that. He was maybe the worst center in the league last year, right? You got a 5th round rookie who comes in, and Geno Smith is talking about how much better he was than the last guy.
Yeah,
it's tough to be. But look, I think what they did this offseason was they decided to run it back by giving Geno Smith some talent on defense, picking him up an elite wide receiver in the draft. I think it makes a lot of sense. And, is this team winning a Super Bowl next year? Probably not. But if you can go out and compete, maybe you get hot, maybe you get lucky. Maybe you see Geno Smith that looks like first half Geno rather than second half Geno. It could be a good year for them. I think it makes a lot of sense given how bad the NFC is for them to go in. Because if you just need to win 1 game or 2 games on the road, it's unlikely, but you never know what'll happen.
Any given Sunday.
I think it will be a decent year for Seattle. They're going up against San Francisco, obviously, which is tough. But they're going to score points. San Francisco, they're going to score points. Seattle, if Geno Smith is okay, they have the recipe to score points too.
They were top 10 offense last year, right?
Yeah, which is what you need to beat out San Francisco. The problem is with them, I just think in terms of a well-rounded football team, they don't sniff San Fran.
Well, and when you watch them play San Francisco last year in the night game in Seattle and then the playoff game in San Fran, they hung around for a little bit, but it was very clear that the 49ers were a lot better than them. Like, you're just waiting for the mistake, and eventually they happen. That's one thing Geno's got to get better at this offseason is, limiting those turnover-worthy plays. Ziggy, you mentioned him struggling a little more in the second half of the season. He struggled. He definitely struggled a little bit more, but a lot of it was just he came back to the mean, really, with like he was throwing. I think he had 13 turnover-worthy plays the first 10 games of the season, and only 4 of them were intercepted. Second half of the year, or the final 7 games, he had 16 of those turnover-worthy passes, and 7 of them were picked off. So it was just a little more realistic. Like he takes these risks, but when it came to deep ball passing, like Geno Smith was the best deep ball passer in the NFL last year. He was an unbelievable leap for a breakout performance for a guy who so many people have written off. But yeah, we'll see. Ultimately, we'll see if he can take another step forward, because that's what it'll take for them to beat those top teams.
I mean, look what we saw. Sorry, you guys.
I was just gonna say, if you're a Seahawks fan looking for optimism in December, right when absolutely everything was clicking for the 49ers, they lost by 1 score. It is possible for this team to play well.
Yeah.
Yeah, you saw what Geno did last year, too, and I'll keep this quick. He won a high-scoring game against Detroit, a team that we're comparing Seattle to. He played a 1-score game in the playoffs in San Francisco. He murdered both the Jets, not murdered the Giants. He murdered the Jets, who, I mean, at the time, late in the season, that was a big game. Took care of them handily. Beat the Giants, who everyone started to...
Those are great when they beat the Jets and Giants.
Yeah, awesome. Giants are being talked about like they're the best team in the world. Seattle beats them. Like, Geno looked good to end the year. He really did.
They got hot. They got hot. Detroit got hot. And now we'll see how they do this season. Real quick on their defense, they're trying to build another Legion of Boom back there with Witherspoon, Tariq Woolen. Great rookie season, a little overshadowed by Sauce Gardner having arguably the best rookie season ever for a defensive player. Obviously that, took a little bit of the spotlight away from him. If Jamal Adams is able to return to form with Quandre Diggs, they bring in Julian Love. I mean, it's a really talented secondary. Obviously, Bobby Wagner coming back. He was the highest graded PFF linebacker last season. It's a good corp they have there. It all comes down really to me to that D-line where there's just no one who can really get after the quarterback. So if someone breaks out, this defense will be a lot better than people are projecting. I
mean, they did add Draymond Jones from Denver, who got 7 sacks last year.
Yeah, they
definitely made an addition.
But they'll need someone to really break out and become that star pass rusher for them, someone who could get pressure on the quarterback. I mean, the run defense isn't that great either when it comes to the D line. So we'll see. It's there's definitely some pieces that need to improve along that. But overall, this team. When you look at the Vikings, Seahawks have a better defense than them.
One defensive rookie I think is being slept on a lot, Derek Hall out of Auburn for the Seahawks. He was an incredibly good pass rusher in the SEC last year. In the SEC, you have to go against good tackles.
Yeah.
So he could definitely make, he doesn't need to have a double-digit sack season, but if he can just give them 5 or 6,
it can
make a big difference.
Yeah, have a couple guys step up.
I had a 25-minute conversation last year with Derek Hall's mother.
Are you serious?
Before the Auburn game. Yep. It was called the Tiger Walk. It was like the Auburn Walk of Champions, where they all get off the buses, walk into the stadium before the game starts. It was Auburn versus Penn State, and
I mean Auburn versus the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah. And I was right next to Derek Hall's mom. And I was talking to her for a while. And then we see Derek Hall get off his bus. He's walking right towards us. I give him a high five. He hugs his mom. And she's like, "Go get him, son. How you feeling? You doing all right?" He's like, I'm ready. I'm born ready. And that was it. And then they proceeded to get murdered.
And then Penn State won by 50 points.
But no, I was talking to his mom for a long time.
So what do you think? Is he ready to take the step up in the NFL?
I mean, he was good. I mean, he had some vicious hits, but the rest of the team was terrible.